Welcome back to another monthly market update for the Columbus, Ohio real estate market. I'm Ryan Dieter with Key Realty. In today's video, we dive into the February 2025 numbers. We're 2 months into the year, and we're seeing the trends kind of take off like we've seen the last few years, maybe even a little more drastic in some areas. I also have a mind-blowing stat I want to show you about New Albany and what's going on there. We heard a lot of grumbling about the Intel project lately, and is that going to impact that area? We will find out in today's video. Join us today, but before you do that, if you haven't liked and subscribed to this video, please do so you get an update whenever I post a new video. I post these monthly and some other videos as well, so if you ever want to see any of my other content, go back, watch it, but like, subscribe, leave a comment, and let's dive into it. All right, as you can see here, I got the February numbers pulled up from the Columbus, Ohio Board of Realtors that they produced for us, and this is the Columbus region. As you can see, all these counties are included, so this is where, we'll dive into a little bit more specifics here shortly, but it's always good to know exactly what's going on in your neighborhood as well. And as we dive into a more, I guess, I would almost say a normal market compared to the COVID years, Columbus is still a very competitive market for the most part, where we're seeing things kind of normalize a little bit. And when that happens, the fundamentals come back to be very, just much more important in a sense of getting top dollar or finding the right house. You need to understand the fundamentals of location, of course, market timing, and condition. Those three factors are always going to drive a market, and drive values of your markets as well. So those three things, always keep those in mind, especially as we move forward. We're not going to see quite as much just everything moving up and to the right no matter what, like we saw during the 2000 to 2002 years that people got used to. We're seeing more stabilization, but also more location focused on if a market is doing well or not so well. So we'll dive into more of that, but this is the numbers as a whole. We have seen last month. I think I talked to you last month. Let's jump back. I think I have last month's pulled up. Let's just recap last month real quick. We actually saw, we saw some modest growth last month compared to the last few years. And in some areas, we even saw some depreciation. But overall, very just modest growth in January of 25. And this month, we're seeing kind of the same thing. Modest growth, a little bit more growth we're seeing than compared to last month. Average price at 4.8, median price at 1.9, and average price per square foot up at 5, meaning that we're seeing a lot of smaller, average price homes sell, and the more expensive homes are not selling for quite as much. And that was kind of what the anomaly really was during the COVID years, was that really expensive homes were selling for top dollar, for selling for well over what they were a few years ago, and they were selling very quickly. And so they were, the days on market were very low, even for high end stuff. And it's usually, the bookends, what we call it, the low end, super low end, and super high end that take longer to sell typically. And so that was kind of the crazy part about the last few years, is that everything, the low end, high end, in the middle, of course, were just flying off the shelf. And now we're getting more to that, back to a normal market where the high end necessarily is not going to take, 3 days to sell. It may take 3 months to a year to sell because, the high end market is, not for everyone. And there's not as many buyers in that place. And, so the most expensive home in a neighborhood tends to be the hardest one to sell. And that's going to start to become more true as we get more normalization in a market. And so, I'm not surprised to see the average price is up and median price is not quite as high as the average. So, and then, but price per square foot up, price per square foot continues to rise at the fastest rate, which means that, typically means that smaller homes are selling at a higher appreciated rate than the larger homes. So, so the other thing to kind of take notice was that we saw actually less closed sales and less in contracts. We hit kind of an all-time low, in the amount of homes being sold. And so that's going to keep driving the market when we have, less homes being sold and less new listings as well, means that there's less homes available. And, that also kind of to understand like what homes are being on, what kind of homes are on the market. Are they desirable homes? Are we seeing homes that people want hit the market? We're seeing a lot of homes that, are hitting the market and then maybe coming off and not selling at all. And the ones that are selling, are still selling quick. So it's still it's still a seller's market here in Columbus. We're still seeing, average of 43 days on market to sell, which means that, that means the time it gets in contract to close as well. So that's got to be included in that. So 30 days is the normal, if you're doing a loan, how long it takes. So 2 months to close on a house is still very quick on average days on market. So we're still seeing it's not a buyer's market by any means. What I want to see if as a buyer's market is this inventory start to creep back towards almost 6 months. And we're still seeing 1.5. So we're not even close to necessarily a buyer's market, but we are seeing certain areas of Columbus, trend in certain ways, and other areas trend in the opposite direction. So this again is where it's going to be critical to understand location and not just, even as Columbus as a whole. I mean, nationally, you can take the national market and look at it and say, we're seeing depreciation in some communities nationally, but Columbus is still moving forward at a healthy rate. And we're actually at a healthier rate right now than we have been the last few years. So now we're at a point where, if you own a home, it's still growing, still building equity. But if you don't own a home and you're renting, it's not built, the market's not moving so quick that you're losing out on so much that you can't save enough to be able to buy a home. And that's kind of the problem we had the last, 5 years was, housing market was growing so quickly that if you didn't have a house, or if you had a starter home where you're wanting to buy the next home, prices have gone up so much and so quickly that it was hard to keep up and save for a down payment or enough money to make sense to buy a home. And so you kind of got left behind. And so we're at a more healthier rate right now, which is good for the market and for a community to see that. We don't, communities don't want to see depreciation because that means that people that own homes are actually losing value, and it really hurts the people that are recently buying homes because then you buy a home and if it goes backwards right away, it means that you're losing money, and if you do need to ever sell that house, you could be underwater. So we don't want to see that necessarily, but we want to see it kind of as a healthy growth rate, which where we are. Um, so we're seeing some good things in the market still. And again, it just comes down to kind of going market specific. And I want to show some of that to you today. As you can see here, this is a really unique thing that the Columbus Board of Realtors does for us. And this is where I've talked to other realtors, and not every area, every board does this, breaks it down this way. This is a really nice thing that Columbus does for us as realtors, but also this is available to all consumers. So it's just on their website. So you can go to their website and you can click on the market stats, and you can find market stats for individual communities. And I'll start at the top here at the B12 Clintonville, where I happen to live. You can see that the number is going to be a little different, not too drastic differently than the February numbers as a whole, but you're seeing some just different, average prices up, but average price is up 6.5, median price is down, or average price per square foot's down, which is an odd, some of these times it's odd, and I don't put too much stock in just 1 month for the areas because when you have only 35 homes closed compared to 1,700 as a whole, one house or two houses could really skew the numbers. So you got to kind of look back at a couple months and say, what's the trend happening here? What's the trend happening in like the Clintonville area? And one way to quickly do that is look at this graphic here. And this gray line is going to be the area, and the blue line is going to be the Columbus as a whole. You can kind of see where it's tracking based on that number. I love this graph, especially as when we look at the market timing stats of what's going on in the market. This graph is a great example of how Columbus grows. The appreciation happens in the spring every year. We see the spring market just take off. And as you can see, this, as Columbus as a whole and Clintonville as well, has just, since January has taken off. And we've seen that. I've seen that in the market. And these are always 30 days behind or so, about 20 days behind time they gather these stats and produce them online for us. And so what I've been seeing online, or not online, but in person and showing houses and then listings, is that we are in the midst of the spring market now. The sun's out here in Columbus, and so are the buyers. And so we have entered the spring market, and sometimes we see that market take a few months, like we have in the past. Sometimes it happens right away once the new year hits. And there's a lot of factors for that. I posted another video previously about why the spring market's so competitive in Columbus. If you want to go back and watch that, highly recommend it if you want to understand. But either way, we see, all I joke to say we see 200% of the appreciation take place throughout a year in the spring market, and then 100% of that appreciation, so 100% of that 200. So we see 200%, and we see come down about halfway to end the year. So we see drastic appreciation, and then it comes down, and this is a critical thing to understand whether you're looking to sell or buy. And if you're looking to buy in this market, you need to know how to make a competitive offer and how to win an offer. Um, and we just had a buyer who was financing, beat out a cash offer because of the terms. They were only $1,000 higher than the cash offer, but yet the terms were so much better outside of the price that the sellers accepted the offer. So there are ways to get your offer accepted in this time. You just got to know and be prepared for that. As for selling, this is the time. If you're looking to get top dollar and you want to have multiple offers potentially, this is the most likely time to get that. But you still have to understand how to price your home based on where the market's going, not where it's at. So those are just a couple quick tips. But it's good to see this graph, and you see this Clintonville, as a whole, there's always going to be those huge upswings and downs, just because when you have 30 homes selling in an area, one home drastically changes those things. So one home that, is immaculate and been redone and it's what everybody wants is going to sell for, much higher than a house that needs completely renovated. It's going to go, and we're seeing that be more important than ever. Condition, one of those factors I talked about at the beginning, the condition of the house, when prices are up and interest rates are up, condition matters a ton because buyers have a harder time spending money and then having to spend more money to fix the house up when they can just finance everything and buy the house they want. They will spend two, maybe three times more than what it costs to fix it up to buy it ready, the home ready to move in because they know they don't have to bring extra cash to that. So something that may be only $25,000, $50,000, they may spend 100,000 on that, 100,000 more on the house because they can finance it. So those are that's the fundamentals of real estate. It's why, flipping has been a, industry for the last, 20, 50 years, however long, the market's been there, that why it works, but you have to understand, condition in this market, more so than ever, in my opinion. And so that's another huge factor. So let's look at a couple other communities here. So a couple of the communities, look at the Columbus School District. That's another, factor I'm seeing a lot is school districts are really driving the market. Again, that kind of goes back to the location and school districts. We're seeing modest growth in Columbus School District. So just modest growth. We actually saw a little bit higher than we did last time, but you're going to see that line be very similar to the Columbus market as a whole, but you're seeing it under the average, of course. So that makes sense. Go back to, I want to show you a couple other ones. And this is where, we're seeing the suburbs really, do well. But again, not all suburbs are the case. We're seeing, like a good, a little above average suburb would be Westerville. We're seeing that. Again, just numbers that are, very high in a sense from any market, 13 to 11 to, 4, about 5. So we're seeing those prices continue to tick up quickly in Westerville. Let's do, Worthington's another one. It's a good school system. We're seeing, kind of, average price, so we're seeing some anomalies, with these. But you see there's very little, less homes for sale in some of these areas. And we're actually seeing these homes, so we're just, seeing the inventory rise a little bit, but not enough really. This, Worthington's a tough one because it's hard to know. There's only, 30 homes for sale. So we're seeing less homes selling too, which was going to catch up to the area eventually as buyers want to be in that area. Another one would be like Upper Arlington. Let's get Upper Arlington School District here. You're seeing, again, just some numbers that, average price up to 20%. Again, this is 1 month. We're seeing just less homes selling as well. And that's kind of the theme we've been seeing the last handful of months is that we're just seeing less homes sell as a whole. I also want to show you, a community that has had a lot of attention lately. Let's go to New Albany. I think I teased this at the beginning of the video. You can see New Albany here has actually had, they only had five closed. So this is one of those communities that had very little last year, but this year they've had a lot more. And, you're seeing the prices actually come down in this community. That's where there's actually opportunity in some of these areas. This is because, the Intel bump that really affected this the last few years. We saw that get kind of oversaturated and kind of flatline. And now we're seeing a lot of the stuff with Intel just have a lot of bad press. Let's say it nicely, and we're seeing that affect the community, I think, some. And this is a mind blowing stat here is days on market. I've never seen any stat, a number like this where you had days on market was 5 and now 56. So over 1,000% change in that. So, it's just showing like how drastic the days on market is. And this could be something that, it could be an anomaly. I don't want to take too much stock in this one stat. Yeah, obviously things are taking longer to sell in that area. That's obviously the fact here. And we may have a couple houses that they could just be well overpriced. It could be a terrible home in an area no one, an intersection or something that no one wants to be in. So you don't want to take too much stock in just one stat, but it is showing the drastic, effect that Intel has had on the New Albany area, which is kind of crazy. Okay, lastly, I want to wrap this up by just kind of about mortgage rates, and obviously that drives part of the market. Not all of it, obviously, but it is a factor of supply and demand. I always say real estate's it's not rocket surgery. It really comes down to supply and demand. How many buyers are out there for how much supply there is? We're seeing the supply continue to go down, but we're seeing an increase in demand. As you can see here, this is mortgage rates is this yellow line here, and mortgage applications is blue line. As we're seeing a slight uptick in mortgage applications throughout the last few years. And we're seeing as rates kind of dip down, you see that correlation there. As rates dip down, we saw applications rise and kind of dip back down as rates went back up. But we're still seeing those on the rise as a whole. So we are seeing more buyers into the market. This is obviously a national stat, so it's not a Columbus local stat, but this trend I'm sure is following the Columbus area as well. So I think we are going to see a very busy spring in Columbus as we see less homes hit the market again. Where are we at here? New listings. This is what for Clintonville. Let's go back to Columbus as a whole. In February, new listings were down, by about 100 homes, which is not drastically different, but we're still seeing less homes. And this is, 2004, we still saw low inventory. And so, now that it's getting even worse in a sense, that it's not going to help the things, but we're seeing more buyers into the market here in Columbus. I think buyers are finally tired of waiting for rates to come down, and they're okay if they come down close to this 6% because they've been close to 7. If they come down at all, I think buyers are going to continue to flood the market, and there's talk of a recession coming around the corner here as a whole. And the first thing we tend to see during a recession are rates softening. So if that's the case, I think the market here in Columbus will continue to be a very strong market and have a very strong spring. So if you're, looking to sell, this may be the time. And if you're looking to buy, just know it's probably going to be competitive depending on what area you want to be in, and really focusing on those areas is going to be important to understand just how to make a competitive offer and get the job done. Hopefully this is helpful. Thanks for tuning in. Again, if you like this, if you think this information is useful, please subscribe, and I will see you next month, if not before then. Thanks for tuning in.